Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya Peluso, and I'm here with Barry
Very green.
Green.
Hi, good morning.
And first, we just love hanging out here on the Google Hangout out in my backyard and enjoying the sunshine. And so we're excited that you're joining us today because we're talking about our favorite topic, and that is getting off the healing train. So where did this come from? Where did this idea of the healing train come from? It's actually from one of our clients who's currently in the School for the New Generation leader. And he was like, I just feel like I'm on this train. I'm on this healing train. And I just want to get off. Like, I'm tired of going and going and going, and I just want to be. And it's interesting that he had put it into that metaphor because I felt like I was in the exact same position over a year ago where I felt like I was on the train. I was on the, what is that, that train in India? The,
Marrakesh Express.
yeah, I was on the Marrakesh Express. That was not only traveling to India, because I definitely went there, but I was going all over the world. I've been to 25 countries. And I realized that I was seeking. I was looking for the truth, and I really thought that it was out there. And what I found through this process that that Barry has developed and that I've been trained in, and now that we're taking people through, is it's like the answer is not out there. The answer is within. And that coming home to myself is what this process allowed. And it felt like for me that this process, the releasing the past process as we call it, was really that last stop for me on the train. And so you're probably wondering, okay, well, how is that possible? What does that mean for me? And so that's really what we want to talk about today. And Barry was just saying, it's like we feel like we've healed ourselves, and then it's like something else comes. And we keep going in that circle, right? And it's like, oh yes, I got this piece, and then it comes up the next day, so what is that? What is it that actually has us keep going in the same cycle, thinking that we're healing, keeping us on the train, and feeling like we're never going to get off? Like, is this work ever going to end?
So the interesting thing is that the understanding that we have about how we develop as humans, our human nature, all of this is quite refined. It's quite refined in science, and it's extremely refined in the ancient traditions, especially in the yogic tradition. The yogic tradition has a vast amount of literature on basically how to be our natural human self. And that amount of literature is very powerful because in the history of yoga, which now is thousands of years old, there have been multiple demonstrations of people following those guidelines and becoming quite clearly a natural, empowered, joyful, productive, trusting, all these wonderful qualities we look for human being, and they have been inspirations and guides to all of us. So other traditions, of course, people have achieved that as well. The yogis have the most literature on the how-to. And what's happened is that modern science is now actually catching up with all of that literature. They're just confirming what was known for thousands of years. But basically, the bottom line is we're unique on the planet. The human, out of all the living species, is completely unique, absolutely unique. We don't develop like other animals do. We're the only animal that comes with nothing. The ancients talked about it as a tabula rasa, a clean slate. And that was not just ancient ideology. It was literally what we now know as scientific truth. We're not born with any inborn knowledge. We don't have any idea. Unfortunately, a human baby, if left alone, is not going to be alive for very long. It has no capability to deal with anything for months and months and months and months. So we need help. We need support. And what happens, though, is that 10% of our nervous system is all we have at birth. It's completely reptilian. We're living from this what's called reptilian brain, just pure survival. And at the moment we're born, and day after day, we have an explosion of nerve cells that are memory cells for imprints to happen. And this is what's called our subconscious, or known also as pre-logical learning. That part of our brain that's all around the outside, that when you see a picture of a brain, it's all these kinds of, looks like a colon all up on the top of your head. Anyway, that's not developed until beginning at 7. That's the cortex, the thinking, the logical part. And Tanya, the amazing part about that part of the brain is that it only does 10% of the work on our day-to-day basis of what our brain does. So the other 90% is done by literally that old brain, the reptilian, and the emotional brain called the limbic brain. And those two brains, the limbic and the reptilian, or the brainstem brain, they are the subconscious. And in childhood, that is what gets programmed. Without any logic, without any understanding, it's just imprints. Imprints with information all imprinted in there. So if, let's say, I'm in my childhood and my mom and dad are having an argument and I'm 3 years old, and they're like, what the hell are you doing? You know, what made you decide to do that? Don't ever do that again. And what's wrong with you? And they're really upset with each other, and they're angry and arguing back and forth and back and forth. As a child, I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand anything about their issues and their challenges and their psychological patterns and their history and their background and all kinds of stuff that, as an adult, I may look back and say, oh, I understand Mom and Dad, right? But as a child, all of that happened was imprinted. And everything about it was not understood for what it was, but everything about it, physical, emotional, and the belief structures that were happening. So if I'm angry, you know, like I can be teaching my child or imprinting in my child literally dozens of things, as well as you as the mother could be doing that if we're having a baby and we're having a dysfunctional argument. You know, don't love your partner. Make your partner do whatever you want them to. Control others. You can't trust others. Intimacy is not possible. Be afraid of anger. Let anger control your life. Anger is scary. So many things could be learned, and all of those are what's called, if they're negative, they're all called automatic negative thoughts, because they're linked into the body-mind experience that gets imprinted in that non-logical, pre-logical little child, but as their core beliefs. And those beliefs are the truth to a child. So if there was an argument going on, everything that I would be imprinting about it in my early childhood, at the deep core level, where 90% of my daytime activity exists, my brain works, that's what I'm acting on. What? If that's, and one more thing, what we know from psychology and research is that in that subconscious, that total package of roughly 80% of all we ever learn, at least 75% is said to be negative. So on a day-to-day basis, if 90% of my time is spent in my subconscious, and 75% of my time that's negative, I couldn't do the math on that exactly, but you come up with the majority of your time you're being driven by negative processes. And then what happens is you come out of it, and what do? You realize, oh, boy, I feel so ashamed, and I feel so embarrassed, and I feel so, you know, like I'm really an idiot, and oh, man, and oh, my God, Tanya, let me tell you what happened last night, and I feel so bad because I just did this weekend workshop about self-esteem, and I'm such an idiot. You know, nothing works. You know, I can't get anywhere in my life. You know, here I go into my round and around and around on the healing train, right?
Yep.
Trying to figure out where in the hell am I going to find the answer to get off of this journey and just have what I want.
And to just be.
To just be and be fulfilled. You know, not in the 75% negative subconscious. So the process that I did, which was a modification of one that I learned and didn't learn, but I did for myself in '78, that process called releasing the past is the techniques that are proven and known and reliable to, one, identify the learning, the specific learning, like what programs a computer, that specific programming, and what techniques let that go. You, along with thousands of people, have done that kind of a process, and the results, they work. They work. They worked for me. That's why I wanted to learn to do it. And over the years, I modified it, seeing that it could be more effective. But without the subconscious really being healed, then especially when you know, we can go down to Barnes and Noble and become enlightened, right?
Oh yeah.
Because Barnes
So
and
many
Noble,
books out.
they're what? There's, you go to the self-help category, and you're going to be spending a long time reading all those books, and also being pretty confused because they don't agree with the path and the route. I'm sure you know that.
Yep.
So what happens is people do what? They go to, like, I call it the buffet healing process, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, wait a minute, I think I'll take some of that today. It's like, no, I tried that last time. I'm going to do this one, right? Oh, they've got a new one this week. Let's try the Akashic Records with barbecue sauce on it, or the the Watsu with a little bit of hot sauce today. Or, no, it's been too hot. I'm going to try some of this cooling Indian dish that will balance my chakras. Oh, balance my chakras. So the bottom line is, get off that healing train. You have to go to those core beliefs that make up that 80% of everything we learn, and that make up 90% of what we operate under, and are, a lot of statistics now, and are 75%, and that's a minimum, negative. So,
and then the piece that I want to add is, like, for example, I did a seminar where it was really great at identifying those childhood learning processes, or those learnings from the childhood, right? And so for years I was doing work with this organization with these seminars, and I kept identifying what these things were, where they were coming from. But what was missing there, awareness is just the first step. Because what would happen is we'd identify it, and then we'd be like, okay, so now I'm just going to create a new possibility, right? But what about the clearing? Because if you have, let's say we have a garden full of weeds, and you just plant a cherry tree, the weeds are still there. And most likely, they're going to damage the cherry tree and not even allow it to become its full potential, right? Because the weeds are going to suck up the soil and the nutrients and the water, right? So it's like you actually have to get rid of the weeds before creating the new possibility. And this is what I think a lot of the self-help teaches you, is the affirmation. Identify and create the affirmation. But the clearing is what's missing, the releasing, and that's why we call this the releasing the past, because that's the core of the work. That's what's going to get you off the healing train, is when you take the time to identify and then clear on the subconscious level.
And the one thing that's really significant, such as in your situation, you came in to the releasing the past process, and you brought with you so much beneficial and wonderful experience, right? So that's not to be discounted nor negated. That's wonderful, but it just hasn't fully given the full potential that was there.
I was still miserable, though.
And so the releasing the past, doesn't discount anything that anyone has done. That's a rich gift of experience and human process, but it allows it to be complete. Simply like we were talking about this morning. When can I get off this healing train? I enjoy it, but it's enough. Let's get on with getting off the train and being someplace and really living, right? So this is the opportunity. In all of the traditions, the goal is absolutely to do this exact same idea. In yoga, like I talked about, the greatest science of healing and becoming our potential, they talk about that in a very exact and specific way, that is the goal of yoga. The goal of yoga, often people think of, is to be happy, be able to touch my toes easier, but to have this enlightenment, this oneness with the divine, with clear all my chakras out. But in the actual scriptures, in the actual history of yoga, the goal of yoga is clear out these old, ancient program conditionings.
Purification.
They call it samskaras, learned childhood beliefs. That's the definition of it in Sanskrit. And to be liberated is the typical term. So freedom, enlightenment, liberation from the delusions. And that's basically what this process is. It's just using tools that aren't in yoga, because yoga wasn't from the 21st century stress time. It took a long time. I've practiced yoga intensely for a long time, and was doing so, I've learned quite a lot. The first significant developmental stage in yogic practice where you really see a shift, if you're doing a daily yoga practice, which they consider around 3 hours a day, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
You have 3 hours, right? Every day. 30 years.
Well,
30 years. So when I practiced Tai Chi, my Tai Chi teacher, who was very learned and accomplished, he said in the ancient Chinese traditions, your inner being doesn't start to mature no matter what you do until you're 60. But I kept waiting until 60. I was so excited on my 60th birthday. I don't know. So the ancient traditions weren't adapted to modern times. And that's why things like releasing the past became created, so that people on their schedule could do it. You know, the other thing, too, is that it's difficult to do it even on an extended period. You know that. This is why we created Peru. You get there, you take time off from your life, you do the work, you get it done. And you will get it done. It's very structured, and it's fun. We have a good time. We have a really good time. And there's tremendous group support, and you're done. You're done. You're done with cleaning out all of those major childhood learnings and be able to move on with your life. I've practiced this since 1981 with, I have no idea how many people. And it works. It really, really works. It works because it's appropriate. It's what's happening. It's what's natural. It's how we operate.
and so, you know, we look at Peru as well as a bonus, right? You get to go to this incredible land that has medicine. You know, they say that Peru is one of those ancient magical cultures. The land is just incredible there. It's an opportunity to kind of take a healing vacation in a way. And then, you know, we're also incorporating the plant medicines, if that's something that you want to use to assist you in getting out of your logical brain and more into your body. It's a profound experience. During my process, when I was working with Barry, I went down to Peru, and it was amazing how much it helped me surrender into the process. Because that's the biggest thing, is we're holding on so tightly to these delusions. We're holding so tightly onto this childhood learning that we, as Barry said, like as a child, that is your truth. And so to now be separating from that truth and finding out its delusion is an extremely painful process. It's literally like you're ripping yourself apart. And so for me, being in Peru and being in the land and having the support of the medicine ceremonies really helped me to let go. That was, for me, I just went down there with a group of women, and that was the completion of the mother learning. So we do both mother, what did you learn from mother, and what did you learn from father? And that helped me. That was the completion piece for me with mother. It was the perfect place to be. What's really cool about Peru as well is there's both masculine and feminine energy. And we'll be using both of those, and we'll be really working with the land to assist you with this process and to guide you through. What I'd like to talk about a little bit while we have some time here is one of the biggest problems that I personally faced and that I think is probably causing people the most pain, and I see especially in my community, and that is around relationships. Love and relationships. And for me, I remember as a little girl, not as a little girl, I remember in college, my mom saying to me, what is wrong with you that you keep picking these guys? And I really, truly did feel like there was something wrong with me. Why was I getting into relationships with men who were abusive, emotionally, somewhat physically, on drugs, suicidal, right? And there was just this pattern. It was just this constant pattern of boyfriend after boyfriend of these really dysfunctional relationships. And I realized that there were a couple things going on. One is I didn't want to have children, or I didn't know if I wanted to, because I was disassociating with mother altogether, and I wanted to prove myself and be successful and be like a man in the world. I think a lot of my generation probably feels the same way, is we got to go out there, prove ourselves, and we need to go work, and we need to compete with men. And then there was this part of me that, I didn't want to be a mother, I want to be successful, I want to make it in the world, I want to make this huge difference in the world, I want to be this global leader. And at the same time, underneath, I really, truly wanted a partnership, a fulfilling, loving partnership. And I just couldn't have both. And there was no way, my mind was saying, there's no way that I could be a mother and be in an amazing partnership and have the successful career. And that was what I learned from watching my own mother, is you have to give up the career in order to have a family. And so it's just this vicious cycle of constantly being in, bad relationships, and feeling like I'm getting older and feeling unfulfilled and feeling lonely and just really struggling with love. And there's just this big mix that was going on. And I feel like this is a huge issue for a lot of women. And I see it in my community of a lot of people who are really, really struggling to have a healthy, loving partnership with someone, with a partner. And I'll let Barry share a little bit about this, but for me, what I really saw was there was two things going on. Number one was what I learned from my mother that I just shared, and so really letting that go and allowing myself to let go of being the masculine and being like a man, and all those things that I learned, that men are better than women, boys are better than girls, and coming into myself as a woman. Just so powerful through this process. And then the other piece was, what did I learn about relationships, and what did I learn about Dad? And where was I trying to find unconditional love from my dad through my partners or through the men I was with, and creating the vicious cycle of that's never going to be possible because they're never going to be my dad, right? So I had to go really, really deep into that part of myself, and open my heart and find that love within myself first, but untangling and letting go of what I learned around how my dad loved me, how he showed his love for me, where I wasn't actually getting my needs met, and where a man would never, I was learning, like, a man's never going to meet your needs. A man's never going to emotionally be there for you. Anything you want to add to this?
Well, basically, as you put it, it's quite clear in that in our childhood development, whether we're a man or a woman, our parents, our mother and our father, or whoever may be taking their place, someone is going to teach us what we could call the male learning, and someone's going to teach us what we call the female learning. Traditionally, mother teaches female, father male. Anyway, the idea is that, like we talked about before, 80% of all we learn is said to be learned by the age of 5. And our mother represents this truth of the female, which is said to be about getting your needs met, and what it means to be a female. And so for most women, their mother never knew that. Their mother basically learned about being a female the same way that you did from your mother. It was passed on, and of course you know that she didn't really ever have a source of wisdom, a source of clarity, a source of naturalness that gave her information that would work. Basically, that would work and not have a consequence to it. And the same with Father. Father was there to teach us about what a man is, and he's there to teach us about love and relationship, and actually also about work. So uh, because of the bonding process of energetics, male and female attract each other. And this is obviously the natural process, north and south, plus and minus, day and night, male and female. These are the laws of attraction. So for you as a woman, the attractive energy in your childhood would have been to your father, to your father, yeah. Right? Male, female. So you would have been his little girl, and vice versa. And had you been a boy, the attractive energy would have been to your mother. And yet, of course, you would have learned to be we learned to be a man from our father, we learned to be a woman from our mother. And so everything in childhood can get so jumbled up, with one, not learning what it is to be a female, to really own the feminine, right? And two, what does it mean to have a functional relationship? So you as a woman get to have your mother be the role model for a woman, and your mother and father be the role model for relationships. So I can honestly say, with all the experience I've had with running schools and doing private work and being in so much personal growth myself, I can't use my hand to count the number of functional relationships that I've seen over the years, where communications, respect, acceptance, honesty, accountability, love, affection, playfulness, what everyone yearns for. I mean, what do you want? I mean, of course, we want those things, right? Support, trust, vulnerability, all these qualities that we long for. I know in my relationship, which is my third marriage, and it didn't happen until I was almost 60 years old, it was a goal in my life. And a lot of people say that, we may be the role model for them. I mean, we're still in process. Well, it's not like we're done. Neither one of us are clear on that. But certainly, it takes a lot. It takes a lot between a couple. It takes understanding, right? And if your understanding is distorted, what have you got going for you, right? Yeah. Basically, an outcome that's going to be consequential instead of beneficial. So the interesting thing, Tanya, is that, and this is just a generational thing, but if you think about it, the generation that you're speaking of now is a powerful generation. A powerful generation that comes into an age of technology and understanding and communication and what seems like a lot of opportunity to the world, right? Yet, but that generation was brought up in a time in which, remember the term dinks? No, D-I-N-K, double income, no kids. There was a lot of couples that started out double income, no kids, because your parents were at a time where they were trying to find themselves, right? It wasn't old school. Old school was their parents. And so because they were trying to find themselves, it created a lot of conflict for the kids. You follow? There was a lot of conflict for the kids. So now what happens is we have this generation it's got so much potential. You follow? Because their parents were looking for the truth, right? But they hadn't been able to settle into it. And now their kids grow up, learn to be what? Looking for the truth, but also learn that it's hard to find and it's a struggle to get it, and there's a lot of conflict. So there's where we end up with these people that are going through this devastation of being lost and searching and struggle, so much struggle. Releasing the past process is one that gives all that up, because underneath that, what do we really need to learn from our parents? We needed to learn about control, right? How much control do we have, and who's in control, and what's really making all that happen, right? Mm-hmm. I grew up on what I call, I don't want to call it a false religion. I just want to call it a questionable path of religion. Mm-hmm. My parents were Jewish. They were Jewish, especially 3 times a year.
The big holiday.
right? And then the rest of the time, uh, they were part-time Jewish, and the God that I learned about was a part-time God,
Mm.
exactly that way. And so I had a difficult childhood. I wasn't well, and God was important to me because I wanted an answer, and they didn't have it, right? So guess I was blessed to have had the sickness that led me to be the seeker. But certainly most of the people that I know, their parents were usually part-time God, part-time religious, part-time spiritual. And then it leaves us in this empty place of like, is there a real God? Is that where the answers are? Is He
Yeah.
there for me all the time?
Same thing for me. And then the God of hard work.
Oh, yeah.
The part-time God, and then the God of hard work is the one that's really
And
what we're running from.
you'll be punished if you don't
Yeah,
work hard and do good.
exactly.
Right. Not to say that respecting yourself and loving what you're doing is not worthwhile, but the image of having to do good and fear of being punished, there's no tradition that talks about that. There's only distortion of traditions that we certainly see happening.
And so much of us grew up with that, Catholic um, ideology that, like, yeah, you sin, you're guilty, you're be in fear of God, and just this. I did not learn about a loving God at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Releasing the past, the goal of releasing the past is not to have you have any particular belief structure. We're not trying to tell you what is a higher power and how you follow it or what choice to make. We're certainly wanting to present the idea of where does this idea of God fit into human development? Where does it fit into your life? What are the consequences of, of having a distortion? And what are the beliefs that you can let go of and absolutely have an opportunity to find within your own heart what is God for you? And be able to come to that place of trust, to come to that place of knowing that life works. The basic principles in releasing the past are life works. I work, you work, we work, life works. There is love, it's unconditional. And that's pretty big, huh? It's really pretty big. So again, when Tanya's talking about ending up with all these men that uh, weren't so functional, couldn't basically give her the life or the love that she needed. Um, Obviously, there's got to be something going on deep inside where part of you doesn't believe that you deserve to be fully loved and to have it all.
Oh yeah, I definitely that was the issue.
So that's what you got.
Mm-hmm.
You got what your mind told you was true. You don't deserve to have a fully loving and functional relationship. And
yeah, deep down, I didn't believe in myself. Deep down, I didn't feel like I was enough. I needed to work hard. I needed to prove myself. And that it's interesting that you brought in the piece around God. Is I had no connection with God, and really didn't trust. I felt like I had to work hard, and life was hard, and things were not going to work out for me, no matter how hard I tried anyway. And I had no trust in myself, no trust in others, no trust in a higher power. I knew in my head from books I read, from meditations I'd done, that a God existed. But did I feel like He had my back? Hell no. I really felt like I was all alone, and that I had to do it myself, and I cannot rely on God, cannot trust in God, and it's just yeah, just really
all of it.
it created the pattern of just the constant sabotaging of make money, lose money, and just this get in a relationship, have it turn out bad. It's just like everything to get things started because I worked hard and I was great at manifesting, but there was no consistency and there was no trust and there was no surrendering whatsoever.
Yeah. My spiritual teacher had an image that he would talk about over and over again. It just really was so beautiful in simplicity, and yet to me and many it felt like it was so realistic and significant in our lives. He talked about a bird, and I'm going to make a little bird here, and that the bird had two wings, right? And he talked about one wing being the energy that we call God, call grace, higher power, whatever name there might be given, right? And that wing was always flapping. It was always flapping. And this other wing was our self-effort, right? And so when the two go together, off we go on a straight, clear, functional, easy path, right? But if this wing is flapping, and we can't even get this wing flapping, we just go around in a circle, never getting off the ground. And then if we can't catch up to the grace that's being given to us, then we end up making smaller or bigger circles, but coming back to the same place. And, and really, Tanya, the interesting thing is, you know, grace, it's called grace. Grace is the guidance that is said to be given by God or the higher power. And that grace is challenging for most people to accept because it doesn't come like on a silver platter in a beautiful envelope with the instructions, right? It says, Tanya, if you just will now do this, you will never have another dysfunctional relationship, right? So it doesn't come that way because the human process is a process of healing. We have to clear this. We have a physical body. It's in the physical body. Just to have the understanding is not going to purge it out of the whole system. So we have to go through the experience of clearing, and it's physical. So what happens is it comes in an experience, right? And then for most of us, because of our old belief structures, these negative thoughts, that psychology calls them automatic negative thoughts, right? And ANT, I call them ants. The ants start marching in, right? And so the ants come crawling in, you know, these negative thoughts inside. And we start to have this situation where we have an experience like, here's a dysfunctional relationship, and it's like, what an asshole, and I don't deserve that, you know, and oh, poor me, and all of these kinds of thoughts are there instead of, thank you, God, what is the lesson that I need to learn? And take the lesson and match what's given, right? Away you go. So in releasing the past, the goal is you don't have to keep going through these lessons. You've got enough lessons. You've had plenty of lessons. They're already there. You've got a long history of them. Basically what we need to do is identify, do the work to clear it, and so now where you go, you know, you've got all the grace, you've got all the lessons, so away you go on your journey, soaring, flying, you know, heading toward what you and God work out together, right? That's a pretty good partner, huh?
Being in the flow of life, not having things be so difficult.
Yeah. The path of grace or the path of suffering.
Mm-hmm. So if this is resonating with you and you're really seeing how this can support you in getting off the healing train yourself, we invite a conversation with you. You know, email us at info@tribal-truth.com, and so we can set up a time to talk and see if this, you know, how this process can support you. It's worked for me. It's the only thing that I truly believe has worked. And like Barry said, I've been doing personal development for 10 years, and it was like, this is the first time where I'm actually have trust in my heart. I actually feel supported by God. I actually feel joy. I feel unconditionally. It's incredible what has happened for my life. Manifesting a partner, having just money flowing. I mean, just everything's working right now. It's incredible. And, you know, we really invite you to come join us in Peru. You might be thinking, oh, that's too far. Oh, I can't take off 10 days. But really, it's amazing what happens when you say yes to the process, how everything works out, how the grace of God will truly support you. It will be your first lesson in trust. That if this is really calling for you, and you just have to trust, and, you know, and give yourself that vacation, give yourself that time in Peru to enjoy the process. You know, it's a beautiful setting that we're taking you to, and, you know, the money, the details, the time, it will all work out. It always does. It always does.
It always does. For one reason, you're not going to you're not going to be spending money. It's not going to cost you to go to Peru. In this way, you're investing money. You are going to get a return beyond what you can imagine. You are
Big
going to get a
return.
return beyond what you can imagine. The 10 days or realistically about 2 weeks for travel time, et cetera, that you're taking off, that amount of time to do what you're going to get in this work, it is a great investment for your time because you're going to be saving a lot of time to not have to do all kinds of stuff that this will clear for you. The cost for it, cost is going to save you thousands of dollars that you would spend otherwise. Still trying to find it, still trying to get it and not quite do it. Tanya, when I did this work, it was 1978. I dropped out in 1974. It was 5 years later. I spent 4 to 5 hours a day, an average, usually around 4 hours a day.
And when he says drop out, he went and lived in an ashram doing this work 4 to 5 hours a day.
So it was ashram, communities of spiritual seekers, houses with 10 and 11 people in it, and Tai Chi and yoga and meditations and clearing self-massage, herbs, group practices of clearing. I dropped out because after I got connected, there was no other choice. I just had to do that. And even so, after doing all that, one day a friend of mine called up and said, Barry, I'm going to do this process, and do you want to join? I said, I've never heard of it. Tell me about it. Well, it's the one that after you've tried all kinds of stuff, and there's still stuff left, and you hadn't been able to get it out, and you've been looking, and da-da-da-da-da, this is the one that does it. This is the process that's known for that. So that was said, and I went, sign me up.
I'm done!
Because
get me off!
What I couldn't get, there was so deep inside from all this other work, and I did so much work. I was ready. There was something that could do that I was ready, and it did, and I was so blown away that I was working with people already doing some body-mind stuff. And I said, please, can I be trained in this? Can you train me? And they said, we'd love to. We know who you are. You'd be perfect. And I've been doing it since '81.
And now he's passing the torch to me.
There you go. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, just shoot us an email. Let's have a conversation. If this is sparking your interest, it won't hurt for you to have a conversation with us and to go a little bit deeper and see what's really going on for you. And then let's have a conversation about coming down to Peru with us. It's info@tribal-truth.com.
info@tribal-truth.com.
What were you going to say?
No, you said it for me. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And again, as Tanya says, please let us know. Please talk to us. Please allow yourself to be vulnerable with us. We're here to support you. We'll be honest with you. If it doesn't feel like it's a match for you, we want to tell you that as well. So let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And again, thank you so much for joining us today.